Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping. I'll be your host once again for today's episode. Joining me on the show this week is Paul Drysch. Paul is the CEO of PreAct Technologies, which is a company that develops vehicle collision avoidance systems and pre-crash technologies. He's going to talk a little bit about the ADAS sensor that they develop and how that interacts with systems on the car. We're going to talk about those ADAS systems, the sensors, autonomous vehicles, everything that goes into that, and how it's going to shape the future of our industry in the automotive world. So, had a great talk with Paul. It's really cool to get to meet him and chat with some of this stuff. So hopefully you enjoy this as well. With that out of the way, let's jump in. All right. Good evening, Paul. How you doing?
Doing great. And thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join me here on the show. That's awesome, and excited to hear about what you've got going on. And that's probably the best place to start is if you want to give the listeners just a brief introduction to yourself, what you do, and your company.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, my name is Paul Drysch. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called PreAct Technologies. PreAct spun out of a defense contractor that my co-founder created and founded and still runs this day. I think it's about 20 some odd years old now. And they focus on active protection systems for the military, basically systems that detect an incoming missile, RPG, things like that. Try and knock it down before it blows you to pieces, kind of thing. So, what we set out to do was to develop a near field sensor that was unlike anything that was on the market today. Most near field sensors are RGB cameras, like for park assist, ultrasonic sensors, and short range radar. So that's the bulk of the near field sensors on cars. And we wanted to develop a really low cost LiDAR that could replace many of those sensors. Not all, every sensor has its pros and cons, but replace a lot of them with a much higher performance sensing capability that would improve performance of existing what we call slow ADAS functionality and enable new use cases.
Okay. What's the distance that's considered near field? Is there a specific measurement?
Is zero, like 1 inch to 20 meters.
Gotcha.
I like mixing my scales there, but
okay.
We'll go 2 centimeters to 20 meters.
Okay. And yeah, we're very familiar with the ultrasonic ones. Those have been around for quite some time. I mean, probably some of the first driver assistance ones. Yep. What about LiDAR makes it better performance than something like that?
Well, ultrasonic sensors, it's almost like a single pixel camera. It's looking directly in one view, and it can't tell you anything other than does it get a return signal back, basically, from that certain narrow point of view, field of view. A LiDAR like ours, which isn't even super high resolution, it's 78,000 pixels equivalent, wow. And the frame rate goes up to 150 frames a second. So it's like 3 million pixels a second, whereas an ultrasonic sensor is like 1 or 2.
Okay.
you know,
So it's feeding a ton more data in there.
Yeah. The problem is most LiDAR are super expensive. You know, the big guys and the traditional long range LiDAR for like self-driving vehicles and that, those things are thousands of dollars a piece.
Okay.
And that, so, you know, we set out, you know, we're all, you know, kind of all ex-car guys and that, and been in the industry our whole lives. And so we knew if you're going to replace something on a car, you know, OEMs are super conservative and they're super price sensitive. So they had to bring in something that was comparable in price and hopefully a lot better in performance. So.
Sure. And so you're actually selling these to OEs that are going to be putting them on new cars off the line?
Yeah, our customers are generally the tier ones. So ZF, Bosch, Magna, Continental, people like that that make the ADAS systems, you know, and they then sell them to the OEMs. Very, very few OEMs besides like Tesla and a couple of the Chinese OEMs make their own, are totally vertically integrated when it comes to ADAS. So,
how does something like that, and the reason I'm going this direction, I'm thinking about inclement weather, right? Because I live in Minnesota and it's cold and snowy and icy here for what seems to be 9 months out of the year. What's the performance on for these in something like, let's say there's a bunch of snow coming down or even just rain? Can they still perform the same, or are they hindered by that sort of thing?
Yeah, any optical sensor is hindered in those scenarios. And snow, for our sensor, snow is not a big deal. A ton of misty rain, like being behind another car on the road, you know, there's a lot of spray coming up, that's a bigger issue.
Gotcha.
You know, snow by itself isn't too bad at all, really.
I feel like that's one of the bigger obstacles that auto manufacturers are going to have to overcome, as I know they're moving towards, you know, a fully autonomous vehicle to be sold. And that's just one of the things that I feel is going to be very challenging to get around, is how you would navigate a vehicle. I mean, it's tough for people to do it. So,
it's a very, again, no sensor, you know, does it all, you know, regardless of what like Tesla says, you know, you can't do, you know, good ADAS and that with just one sensor modality. You know, you do have to have some redundancy and, you know, I wouldn't say I would say ultrasonic sensors are on their way out.
Okay.
I would bet anything on it. I know they are. Radar, however, continues to get better, and it's a pretty good complement to what we're doing. In that, so yeah, that's, you know, and all depends. There's certain use cases where we're perfectly good. And there's a lot of use cases where it requires multiple sensors, you know.
Yeah, it makes sense. You know, like you mentioned, with going from ultrasonic to LiDAR, the idea, I imagine, would be to try to gather as much information as possible about the surroundings of the vehicle. And then, of course, you need the computing power to process all of that stuff and, you know, the algorithms to figure all that stuff out. It's really crazy. I don't know that much about it, but I've listened and I've read some stuff about AI and how all that works together. And it's incredibly interesting how it takes all of that information in. And I actually remember I was in a vehicle I was in Las Vegas, and they were testing out a BMW that was self-driving, and they still had somebody in the driver's seat, and he was ready to grab the wheel, but the car was driving us around, and you could see on the center stack all of the data inputs that the car was seeing, and all of the obstacles and the people, and it was incredibly interesting. Just it's getting better and better and better, but
I would say autonomous vehicles, for the most part, are still quite a ways away. They work great 95% of the time. They work pretty well 98% of the time. But
Yeah.
they have some work to go, and they do that. These kind of Waymo cars and that, they have like $500,000 worth of computing power in those trunks and stuff, and the sensors and that. Yeah, those are, just orders of magnitude more expensive than anything you could put in production, have people be able to afford to buy.
Yeah, not something that's realistic to have as a vehicle, at least yet. Yeah.
Someday, but
yeah, we're a ways off. But in the present right now, technicians are running into these systems quite often. Body shops, especially with collision repair, you're dealing with calibrations and diagnostics to these systems. Let me ask you a question. In your opinion, for somebody who's going to go out, you're going to be a technician, you're going to work on these systems, repair these systems, and diagnose these systems. What kind of qualifications or education level would you assume a person would need in order to be that guy to fix these systems that are going to, potentially prevent death or injury to somebody, right?
Right. Well, I don't think it's really going to be that much different in the future than it is now. I think the systems are being designed that, you have to be, proficient with a computer and some program, that's a diagnostics program and that, or maybe a calibration program, things like that. But I don't think it's going to get much harder than that. And then there's always the discussion, like our LiDAR units are fully software definable. So, think of, like Tesla, the way they work, I don't know what percentage of all their kind of recalls they're able to fix via software, but it's a lot,
Okay.
And our units are designed, we're the first ones in the world to do this. They're fully software definable, meaning we can change the kind of some of the technology in that and the algorithms and that over the air. We can also add and subtract features as well. So that's maybe a pro and con for an aspiring technician. So a lot of stuff will in the future be able to be handled, just over the air.
Okay.
Not need a technician.
Or you may not need to be at the vehicle.
Yeah. That said, the systems are getting more complex in that. So I don't know the break even. It's like some things are going to go away, but maybe I think for sure there's new issues that are going to arise that will require, a technician at the vehicle. So
yeah, a lot of the stuff, that seems to be coming up with computers, it's almost shifting more towards like an IT profession when you really get deep into the computers and the networks and stuff on a vehicle. So it's a different mindset, right? The nuts and bolts. Although that's still going to be needed too. When you say software defined, do you see that being more present on the entire vehicle? Like, I know BMW, I just saw a thing the other day where their heated seats are subscription based, right? So if you don't pay your subscription for the heated seats, they turn them off.
Yeah. But did you see, so that got a lot of backlash, but then I don't know if it was their CFO or CTO came out and kind of doubled down on it and explained the situation, and it made a lot of sense. It's like, I think is the heated steering wheel, and I think he said, like, to buy that, on the Monrooney label, it's going to it's like 270 euros. But if you want a lifetime subscription to it, it's only 220. And if you only want it for like, the 3 months of winter each year, it's $50 a year or something like that. So you avoid paying for it up front. But then, we'll have to pay something later on. So it makes sense for a lot of things, not everybody's going to want it. A lot of people will just say, no, just give me what I want. And others will be like, I'll just pay for it when I need it.
Do you see more of that come down the road? And with that, do you think there'll be just subscription-based cars in general, like less ownership and more just I pay a fee to an app and then I have access to this vehicle?
That's a good question. At some point, probably be that latter scenario. It's going to be a long time. I don't just like, when you rent a is it's never like all that clean and all
sure.
that, it's a little beat up and like, is that, so it'll be a mix of things for a long, long time. But it is coming. I mean, a lot of the OEMs are pushing, I don't know about, clearly ownership as a, car as a service kind of thing, but clearly the features, being able to add and subtract features based on subscriptions and that is definitely coming. And the ability to add performance or safety features or that over time is a great thing. Like that's one of the programs we're working on with a big German tier one. Our LiDAR, being fully upgradable, the use case that we're developing for is just one thing that this unit can do. Over time, they can add other safety features. We could improve our algorithms that make that sensor more accurate, it tracking objects better, things like that. I mean, as cars move from internal combustion engines to EVs, they're going to last a lot longer. An electric motor can go 4 million miles and then, okay, what do you have to do? Replace the bearings and it's good again, and these single speed transmissions in EVs last so much longer than an 8-speed traditional transmission. These cars are going to last a lot longer. So if they're going to last, 15 to 20 years now, do you want to be driving the car with the 15 to 20-year-old safety system?
Sure.
So maybe the OEM upgrades that for free. Maybe they charge you for it.
Okay.
Either way, I think it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I've heard both sides of, I don't know if it's a debate, but just opinions on the EV vehicles and, is this something that's going to be, more reasonable, more reliable for a customer? And there's, like I said, there's different sides of the debate, but a lot of it comes from the hybrid vehicles that are present and saying, okay, well, look, these are the things that are failing on the hybrid vehicles, but it's kind of a mix between the two. And I'm sure there'll still be maintenance. There's going to be, electrical system failures and suspension and brakes, right? That stuff that's going to be there. So there'll be service to be done. But yeah, that was one of the things I was considering on some of these ADAS systems. Even now that we're seeing is the system going to function correctly for the life of the vehicle, right? And so I guess what you're saying is there can be some updates done on the vehicle to improve the technology as it's going down the road. Which that's definitely.
I always use the analogy of the Do you know the Ring doorbells and Ring cameras in that?
Yeah, I got one.
Well, in my house, I have a Doorbot, the doorbell one, and then I have other various cameras. I still have a Gen 1 Doorbot. It's 14, 15 years old now. And it still works great because they keep upgrading it over the air. And it works. I have some, I think they're like Generation 7 cameras in my backyard. I can't tell the difference. They do the same thing now, and they just keep improving the performance of this, 14, 15-year-old Doorbot.
Interesting.
Yeah. They improve the sensitivity, the false spotters, because, you don't want it going off all the time, as cars go by, especially if they're battery powered.
For sure.
And they've totally improved. Mine works 10 times better than it did, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's really impressive what you can do with just software, to change the aspect. I deal a lot with programming of control modules when we're placing them on vehicles, and then sometimes updating the software. And some of the issues that have been resolved just by a software package always kind of blow me away. Not always, but some of them have. There was one where an engine was making a noise, a physical noise on mechanical components, and the software update fixed it, right? Through doing things differently. Control of the engine, they figured out a way to get rid of this noise. I was, that's pretty cool when you can do that.
That's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah. So some smart people out there writing that code, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
do you ever see, so we get enough of this, we get this technology on here and they keep updating. I mean, is there going to be a point where these cars are just not crashable, where there's not going to be car accidents? And I don't know if insurance companies would love that or not, but
yeah, that's one of those things. I mean, it's so far away because you have old cars, you have current generation cars, and then you'll have multiple generations of, kind of semi-autonomous, these level 2, level 3 cars, and then you'll have fully autonomous, and they're going to not play well together for a long, long, long time,
Right.
Things, some things are clearly good, like automatic emergency braking. That works pretty well. Some of these other things, most people turn them off because they're just freaking annoying.
Yeah, right.
The lane departure thing. It's like, oh my God, that's the.
Yeah. I've driven one that was definitely too sensitive, and then I drove another one that I actually thought was pretty well done. Again, probably done through software. How that's
I had a rental car in Detroit a few years ago that had the automatic lane keep assist. So you put on cruise control and it tried to stay between the lines, but it kept wanting to go over the left line.
Oh, okay.
It wanted basically, so it's probably not calibrated correctly.
Yeah,
and it just wanted to ride probably about 6 inches to the left of the left line.
Okay. Okay.
It was horrible.
Yeah. Well, it can be inconvenient. And then you think, if something like that is involved in an accident, right? There's some sort of miscalibration or malfunction of the systems. I think, a lot of people have predicted that that's going to be an issue in the future too, is the legalities of that and who is at fault. Is it manufacturer of the vehicle or the part? Is it technician who worked on it last? Where is that going to be when it ends up, being a death on the road? And so I get why it's going to be a long time until they're fully autonomous, because they've got to they're going to have to sort some of this stuff out as it comes. It's going to happen. Unfortunately, you don't want anybody to die or get injured for something like this, but it's going to happen out there, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, it is.
The pre-crash, I was looking up some stuff on pre-crash What's your definition of that? What systems are involved, or what goes into a pre-crash system for a car?
Sure. There's two ways to look at it, but one is kind of a misnomer. So like automatic emergency braking, some people kind of call that pre-crash, but that's not really it. Pre-crash in the auto industry is there is an imminent collision about to happen, meaning like you are screwed. There's no two ways about it. The laws of physics say these two objects are going to hit each other. That's pre-crash or imminent collision detection. And that's how we started the company, was going after that. And that the problem with that, it's doable, but there's a lot of lawyers that get involved in that, because you're talking about changing the vehicle dynamics or tightening a seat belt prior to collision, actually potentially blowing an airbag prior to a collision. So you have to be really darn positive that it's going to happen. Now, there's a lot of things you can do that are non-destructive. Like you could pre-charge the airbag so that airbag, once you have 5 nines confidence that you are going to get hit, you can tell the ADAS system, charge that airbag, and then it can deploy quicker after the accident and inflate larger or inflate slower, so that you don't, I forget what the percentage, huge percentage of injuries from accidents are from the airbag,
sure,
smacking you.
Yeah. They come out really fast
compared to what the alternative would have been. But if you can inflate it larger or slower, it's less, painful, if you will. You can have a 3-stage airbag instead of a 2-stage airbag. You can tighten the seat belts right before the crash. You can, with the new electronic suspensions, you do have technically enough time, potentially to, like if you're about to get T-boned, tilt the impact side just up a few degrees so that the frame, the door sill versus the door takes more of the impact. And there's been studies that like just a few degrees the frame will take like 40% more of the impact than the door. You can lower the windows a crack so that you don't pop your eardrums, which I guess happens.
I suppose, if you got a tight sealed cabin, you have all the bags go off.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot of little things you can, if you're about to get hit in one spot, you could literally have the system like just tap the brake of one of the tires just to, unweight just get the mass of the car going a slightly different way so that when it gets hit, it's less of an impact. So there's a ton of little things that are technically possible these days, but they're, I don't want to say they're dangerous, but they, it's got to be very
accurate.
Yeah. It's like Tesla and their autopilot. Well, it's not going so well, for them these days. And no traditional car company wants to go down that path and have issues. So that's why pre-crash is, it's going to be a slow adoption.
All right.
It's starting to creep in, but just barely.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I've dealt a lot with the airbag systems over the years, and the pre-tensioners, and they seem to add, more features to that system every year. They have active headrests that will snap out to protect you from whiplash, and then just all of the different inflator modules in general, right? It used to be you just have the two in the steering wheel and the passenger dash, and now you've got curtain bags. You've got Ford has bags in the seat belt. Volvo's got one that comes out, outside the vehicle to protect in case you hit a pedestrian. All kinds of crazy stuff, but they really ramped that up in the higher end vehicles.
Yeah. So it's very slowly coming, but lots of lawyers involved in that stuff. Yeah. So when you're talking about liabilities and brand image, the OEMs move pretty slow.
Sure. No, I mean, that's understandable too,
Yeah.
when you're dealing with that stuff. But I think it's significantly, I should say, I know it's significantly safer to drive a vehicle today than it would be 20, 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
They're constructed in a way, and I've seen some of these things after they've been in an accident, and it's constructed in a way to really protect those occupants of that vehicle. But then when you have, and that's just the SRS system. Now, when you have sensors outside that can alter the pitch of the vehicle and the braking system, that's great stuff, just for anybody that wants to hop in a car, because unfortunately there's going to be accidents at one point or another.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever been in a vehicle where the bags went off?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. I got T-boned in a grocery store parking lot by a 97-year-old woman who should obviously not have been driving, and she stepped on the gas, T-boned me. She went, instead of the brake, she stepped on the gas at the stop sign in the parking lot and T-boned me, continued with foot on the brake.
Oh no.
Hit another car, and then finally stopped when she hit the big cement stanchion holding up one of the light posts. But she just full gas on that gas pedal.
Oh man.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the only time. But yeah, it hurts.
Yeah. We would, I taught for the automotive program, and we'd set airbags off, every year when we do our airbag class, just to give them a sense of, this is essentially an explosive device that's going off and come out very fast and very loud. In case you haven't seen one, now you know.
Exactly. I think I need to get running actually now, though. I've got
Sure.
If that's okay.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you again for spending some time with me this evening. I really appreciate it.
Great. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah. Nice meeting you.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Thanks.
All right. That's going to do it for today's episode. One more big thank you to Paul for joining me on the show today. I really appreciate it. I'd like to thank everybody out there for listening as well, and wanted to remind everybody, if you're looking for any top-down equipment, whether that be battery chargers, maintainers, jump packs, scan tools, thermal imagers, whatever it might be, even ADAS equipment, I can get you the hookup on that. Just hit me up either through my email or Facebook Messenger, and we'll get you set up. We'll get you the podcast discount. All right. Other than that, let's all get out there, start fixing the world one car at a time.